Cool. All right. Thanks very much for coming along on a Wednesday afternoon after probably a very busy day at school, I imagine. Cool. Hopefully you can see some slides now. As I said, I'll go through how, I can see a sort of spelling mistake there already. Great. I'll go through basically how Waltham Forest are aiming to support schools to get their Eco Schools green flag, which I think I've talked to you both a little bit about already. But yeah, so just jump in with questions as and when. The Eco Schools is a huge international program. Each country will run it slightly differently, but it sort of claims to be the largest education program in the planet, based on the sort of number of countries and schools and students that take part. And yeah, and quite an incredible, nearly 20,000 schools took a green flag accreditation last year. So it'd be great to add to that with as many schools as possible from Waltham Forest. And it is internationally recognised. Like, as the different areas will do it slightly differently. So it's very much tailored to the sort of curriculum and school structure of each country. A key part of it is, well, sort of the way it works is through a 7-step framework that you have an academic year to complete. And the aim is that the next year you sort of build on that by choosing different topics. So there's 10 topics to pick from. It asks you sort of your students to pick 3 topics in the year that they're the Eco Club. And then as more students join or leave the Eco Club, you'd pick some more topics the next year. Maybe some can overlap, so you're actually building in this progression if you feel like there's more work to do on a topic, but also to add more to it. So over the years, you're kind of building on that work the school's doing. It used to be done as a structure of a bronze, silver, green flag, but as of this year, they've changed it to just having a green flag. And there used to be an external person would come in and kind of do an Eco Schools assessment, talking to students, looking at like what your grounds and what work you got on display. But now it's all done by students as much as possible through an online process. So you upload your evidence to that online sort of system, and you can start uploading evidence for the 7 steps as early as September once you've got your Eco Club ready. But you don't actually apply for the green flag until between May and July. There's like a 2-month window where you say you've completed all the questions for your 7 steps, and that you can see, I'll show you a bit more detail. So the 7 steps being like the Eco Committee setup, doing an environmental review. The picture at the top shows like on their website. I'll navigate to their website in a minute. So for each of these 7 steps, such as the action plan, you've got criteria that you'll have to do, notes on that criteria, and then some resources to use. So for the review, there's a sort of table that helps students work through their environmental review. And there's also a little video for each one that explains why this is an important part of the process and how to do it. And sort of with curriculum links, there's lots of case studies of other schools and how they have made those sort of those links in their lessons. Sorry, I keep getting things popping up in the corner of my screen. And what's important is when you sort of, they are in a structure, but they will overlap a bit. So you don't have to have completed your action plan or your curriculum links before you're moving on to the next bit. You can add bits of evidence as you go along. And I haven't seen the sort of online platform for uploading evidence, but it's designed in a way that students can add in pictures and things as much as possible. There are points associated to each of these 7 steps. So you kind of you go for your green flag once you know you've done all the questions and you've got at least 100 points based on these 7 steps. And all this is set out really clearly on the website. But it's sort of useful to show this the Eco Committee quite early on. Sorry, I really need to turn this chat off. How do I? Yeah, so also some of the resources they provide and that might be sort of share with the eco committee quite when you're first getting them together is looking at sort of a timetable of how you might want to do those steps across the year, which ones are going to take a short amount of time, which ones take longer and need more work doing on them, and yes, sort of getting them involved in the planning of the process as well. And those and a kind of key part of it is celebrating and displaying your work, showing your work to other people and visitors and other students. And I think they use this like displays a lot for demonstrating your curriculum links as well. So it doesn't just have to be the eco club, but how are you doing those eco things in your literacy and your maths, etc. And then having photographs of those to upload and demonstrate what you've been doing. So in terms of what Waltham Forest is doing to support the eco schools, well, a crucial thing is we're paying for the green flag accreditation when you get to the sort of May, July window. And we're hoping to set it up in a way that the eco schools will know you're at Waltham Forest School. So the invoice just comes straight to Waltham Forest instead of you having to do the paperwork and claiming it back. I do need to get that 100% confirmed, but that's we're sort of that's what we're aiming for. That's what we're hoping to happen. Otherwise, it's a bit laborious going backwards and forwards. But I'm going to share the link with you to the website now. Are you both on a website where you can, on a computer where you can have a look at it? Because I want you to have a look at the website and the topics, and have a put maybe in the chat which 3 you would pick if you wanted to work on the ones that you think will have the biggest impact on the climate, like make the biggest difference to reducing carbon emissions and affecting the climate. So just have a little look through those topics.
Can I just ask a quick question about
sure.
the scoring system that you just mentioned?
Yeah.
So presumably, like when we submit the application, it's kind of judged by judged by the organisation, and then they would score you out of 15 or out of 10 or whatever it is for each kind of category. Is that how it works?
Yeah, I don't know whether there's anyone scoring. I mean, that's another question I can put to them. They're really helpful. Because I've looked at lots of the resources that they offer, but I haven't actually sort of made my own account and gone through that process. I imagine it will be based on like how many photographs or the content of what you write, rather than anyone physically marking it. I know they're also quite a small team.
Right.
But that I can definitely find out and let you know.
Thanks.
Yeah, so hopefully you're on a web page that lists these 10 topics. And I'll be interested to know which you think your students will prefer to do and which you think are going to have the greatest impact on climate change.
I think like the 3 that kind of stand out to me just in terms of our school and I don't know, things that we've kind of talked about already. Like a big one for us is on energy and waste. I think we're probably not doing as much as we could do around that, particularly on waste and recycling, and food waste in particular. And then potentially on school grounds as well, because we've got really nice spaces around us, but I'm not sure again that they're being used as fully as they could be at the moment. So those are kind of the three that jump out to me, but whether they're the three that actually have the biggest impact on climate change, I'm not sure. I feel like the kids would probably jump on the litter one, just because it feels like one that I remember someone saying to me that when they had the eco team before, they were like really militant about litter and recycling, and I think kids just kind of jump on that one. But yeah, I'm not sure which ones would have the most impact on climate change, but those are definitely the three that jump out to me in terms of our school context. I think global citizenship and biodiversity would be really interesting to look at, but I feel like we're at a place where we're kind of just starting out, and those feel quite big, if you see what I mean. The other ones feel potentially more manageable as like starting out projects, but I don't know. Yeah.
That's actually really good to hear which ones to feel within reach and which ones feel harder. Angela, can you say anything or type? I don't know if you can. You're maybe just on a phone or something. Can you see the 10 topics in the Eco Schools list on the website? I suspect Angela is running this from a phone and it makes it really difficult. I don't. So that's sort of the interesting thing with this. There isn't one that's specifically on climate change, but learning about the climate is intrinsically linked to our sort of natural environment and the citizenship and things like anything that uses energy and power and materials. So the climate change is woven through a lot of these sections, sort of topics, and I actually find quite an interesting activity to do. A way to display things is look at your topics and actually map an activity you do and which it attaches to. Like you could be doing something around using old car tires to plant some wildflowers. So you've got your biodiversity, you've got your kind of messaging about reuse, recycling. Even a straightforward a kind of relatively low cost, easy to implement activity like that will touch on a number of the topics. I'll sort of answer this question in a couple of different ways. And the infographic on the screen now is showing kind of where the majority of our greenhouse gas emissions in the UK comes from. So actually transport and our energy supply are the two big ones, and that does sort of map onto a school as well, or at least of the school and the lives of the community around the school. Food, agriculture being 10% of that, and then actually waste management being 5% of that. The most up-to-date stats we can find from schools are pretty old now, but I doubt they've changed hugely. It doesn't include food within that, but I think that would come under procurement. But that's also looking at all the other goods and resources and services that you're building your school structure uses. So it's not the most helpful data, unfortunately, because so much would come under that procurement. But the buildings, the big one, the energy use, the water use, the heating of buildings is massive. So the topic of energy in terms of looking at how we practically reduce carbon emissions, potentially quite quickly, if you can change like the thermostat or make sure the building isn't heated during the weekends or evenings it's not used, that is one that can make quite a quick, like, immediate difference. And I know Waltham Forest and like schools are already doing so much around travel and transport. So it might be you might have already, if you've already done quite a bit on it, it might be quite hard to make a difference, but it's worth investigating.
I think we're in quite a special situation with regards to travel and transport, because so many of our kids, like catchment area for school is really small. So many of our kids literally live around the corner from school. So when we did the Monday walk to school or cycle to school challenge, pretty much every single child completed that challenge. So I think like that's something that, because you're saying that we can kind of start to evidence towards this already. I think that's like something that we could say pretty confidently that we're quite fortunate to be able to do quite easily, because the majority of our kids do walk to school or do cycle to school.
So yeah, I mean, I think, and it's good to start off on a positive, to demonstrate you're already doing a lot. I mean, maybe then they could survey teachers that drive and find out, why do they drive? What are the barriers to using public transport or walking? Because it's not necessarily about trying to badger teachers to start walking if it's impractical, but at least there's quite a learning activity in there. None of these things are straightforward. There's rarely a black and white, like easy solution for things. But yeah, I always sort of like try and encourage things like interviewing the caterers, interviewing teachers about finding out what their habits are and why. As you can see from that pie chart, waste is actually quite a small proportion, and littering, whilst one that we can all get behind, and I know young people love litter picking, you can see an immediate reaction, it feels really good, you're protecting the wildlife. The link between litter and climate change is actually fairly tenuous. I mean, there are links for certain, but you've got to make quite a few connections before you get there. So for the way, as Waltham Forest Council, we're encouraging schools to take up eco schools. We want them to look at least at one that's going to be more challenging on the carbon emissions reduction, and build teaching about carbon footprint into it. I mean, the conversation I need to be having with schools that want to do this is, where is sort of our support going to be best lent, and like, is it around some more teaching around carbon footprints and greenhouse gas emissions? You know, and I don't know if you have any thoughts on if I'll actually skip on to the next slide, because within the sort of the bigger picture of how we want Waltham Forest schools to start taking climate action and learning as the official Eco Schools project, or just more broadly to be an environmentally climate aware school. These are sort of different. We're not naming them as steps, because they won't all come in sequence at all, but yeah, wanting to make sure it's not just one teacher leading on a project that's isolated from the rest of the school, that the Eco Club are kind of having ideas that then will feed into other projects or lessons that students are having. Ideally, that then feeds into outside the community, as you're doing it with the walking to school. And even if walking to school, have the conversation about why walking to school is good. A big one actually is, if students are having ideas, making sure they're fed up to senior leadership, and then senior leadership feedback what they're going to do about it. Have that two-way conversation. And the big scary one really is starting to develop a climate emergency action plan and policies that sort of demonstrate that change is going to happen over a period of time, and you're going to build on it. It's not just a one-year cycle of some nice lessons and then they do that cycle again. So yeah, I'm kind of interested, and I'll be talking and emailing lots of schools about this over the next month or so, but interested to know where you think our support as the borough is going to be best lent to schools. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like I think in terms of like setting up the eco team, in terms of having adults involved, we've got like 3 members of staff that have kind of signed up to it straight away, and the kids are really behind it. So I think getting that kind of side of things up and running will be okay. I think like more support for teachers is really key. I think around like the session that you did with us in the inset day the other day was really useful around like climate literacy and around climate anxiety and things like that. Like I think there's always a real range of like knowledge and also confidence about how to teach those things. So I think like sessions for staff around how to teach some of the key issues would be really useful. And then like we've got really involved governors at this school. I had a meeting with one of the governors the other day, and she's really keen for the parents and the kind of wider community to be involved, which is great. But again, yeah, any help that you can give us on like putting together policies and putting together, you were talking to us about declaring climate emergency, like kind of any guidance around developing policies and doing that side of things would be really helpful for us, I think.
Great. Yeah, I mean, that's sort of what I was expecting, I guess. It's really good to hear it. And yeah, hopefully what we will be doing alongside this Eco Schools project and try and bring as many teachers and senior leadership on this sort of Eco Schools journey as well. Angela, if you do have any other comments, please just stick them in the chat if your mic's not working, and I'll respond. So a few other things I wanted to share. There's an organisation called Green Schools Project, which they've done work with schools to kind of, I guess, help them run eco schools groups, but at a much sort of bigger scale than a teacher would normally be able to. And they now are running a program called Zero Carbon Schools. I've only got it really small on my screen, but hopefully you can see it slightly bigger. The sort of few key stats actually are money saving attached to food growing, their energy, and recycling that they've sort of managed to do just in year one of working in a secondary school. Then I think they had even more financial savings in second year. And then by the third year, it sort of plateaued because you sort of saved as much money on your energy bill as you could. And they're currently doing a sort of remote version of their program. So you run it yourself as a school, but they're there to give it advice in the background. I will share, if I can share the link to that in case schools want to have a look at it and sign up. Oh, I've lost it.
That's an amazing amount of money on the energy bill, isn't it?
Yeah, and kind of what it shows is that it probably should have been spotted
Yeah.
earlier. I imagine that sort of from one sort of quite straightforward change that is being made to either the temperature setting or which buildings are heated when, and obviously secondary schools tend to have much bigger campuses. Oh, it's gone very large. Yeah, so that's if you want to have a little bit more of a look at that and what they are offering through their kind of online program that then comes to support, and their angle is about building it more into lessons than as an extracurricular club, in order to sort of make sure it's embedded. But that might be an interesting project to look at. They are based locally, although a national organisation. And then really I wanted to wrap up. Oh, first I can have any questions you've got, but forgetting teachers talking to students about climate action. Obviously this is the climate action is the theme of Friday, and getting the pledge for change. But really it's about trying to nurture what students want to do as their climate action, and in something that makes them feel comfortable, confident, using their skills. It's all about like working out. I mean, it's like whenever you're setting lessons as well, you're differentiating between students. You're working out what approach to take with different students. We need to do the same with climate action. Everyone will have something that they can do and can contribute and feel that they are achieving climate action in their lives. But we need to be identifying what that is for different people. And yeah, you'll know your students. That's where you're best placed to work with them on finding what that climate action is. And yeah, and hopefully it'll sort of encompass all of these things, all these words I've put on the screen at the moment. A big one I'm a fan of is making it normal, normalizing it, but also making it fun. And reminding people that will be challenging, but the challenge will be kind of rewarded and will be worth it. Yeah, that's sort of the kind of key message, I guess, of this Climate Summit week, really, is that climate action will come in different shapes and sizes. I don't know if that feeds you with any ideas and you want to share what your climate action might be.
Yeah, I think it'd be really interesting to see what the kids come up with on Friday, because I feel like we're covering quite a lot of areas through the week, which is really interesting. And it'll be interesting to see what sticks with the students and what inspires them. So yeah, I'm not quite sure where we're going to go with it yet, to be honest. I think it'll be interesting to see what comes out of it. And as soon as we get the eco committee up and running, which we're planning to have their first meeting next week once the elections have finished this week, and it'll be interesting to see where they want to take it. I'm not quite sure what will kind of speak to them the most, but yeah, there's lots of stuff to be thinking about.
How often are you going to meet as a group?
Yeah, we're not sure. Do you have any advice on that? Like, we were wondering whether twice each half term is enough, or what would your recommendation be?
It really depends if they've got a project that they're getting their teeth into, I guess,
Yeah.
and how it fits with others. I mean, it might be nice if it can be. Are you doing it as an after school club or a lunchtime?
It'll probably be a lunchtime thing. Yeah.
Yes, I mean every 2 to 3 weeks
Mm-hmm.
it's good to keep that momentum.
Yeah.
But it might be that 1 week is more about doing an audit, and another week is just going for a walk to your local green space.
Yeah.
So you're still doing some learning activity, but you're to keep it regular without it sort of becoming like you're repeating the same things.
Yeah. Okay.
And help that group bond together, I think. I guess because you're doing it with Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2? Is that
Yeah,
right?
we've said from year 2 upwards, I think. Yeah, it's the same with like our school council. It's always a bit tricky sometimes with the very youngest ones as to whether they're going to engage or not. So I think we're thinking year 2 to year 6, but we might involve year 1 as well.
Cool. Yeah, I'll be interested to hear how that goes. I mean, I know actually within sort of some of the secondary schools, they've been using the model for the Climate Summit week. That's they've picked some students from a certain year group that have looked at the presentations, assemblies that have been provided, and they've actually got the student teaching the other students about that theme. So they've sort of been given a project to learn a bit more about that theme and present. So I imagine you'll end up with you'll have year 5 and year 6 who are really knowledgeable.
Yeah.
And who can hopefully do sort of some of the teaching for the younger students as well. Yeah. Angela, if you've got any questions you can put in the chat, please do.
I'm gonna have to leave in just a second, because I've got another parents' appointment coming up. But I just wanted to ask. This has been so helpful. Thank you. I just wanted to ask, like, logistically, to kind of get things started, what is it that we need to do? Do we need to register through the website that you've shared, the Eco School's website? We need to register like our interest in it, and kind of get started with submitting evidence of what we've been doing already.
Yeah. So you'll get the information of how to then, like, you have your account to upload your info as you're going through your 7 steps. There's resources for the 7 steps, and then for the topics, it's more like little case studies and ideas rather than here's the worksheet.
Yeah.
And then there's only a fee for the sort of the program once you want to have your green flag accredited at the end of it. So yeah, I guess to see how you're getting on by May. But I'll be in touch with all the schools in Waltham Forest before then hopefully come in and do some sessions for students or for teachers on whatever you think is going to be the sort of the aspect of sort of bringing a bit more the climate education into it to help them get the most of this program.
Brilliant.
But yeah, if once you started and you had a few sessions, you thought, well, actually we could really do with a bit more on, like, hopefully not litter picking, but maybe on like what you could do in your grounds. I can come and have a look with you, or one of those other aspects. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That's been so helpful. Are you going to share the slides afterwards?
Yeah, I can share the slides, everyone that's signed up, and I hope you don't mind. I'm going to put this video, or if you do mind, I won't, but I was going to put this video onto the Suntrap website. So
yeah, that's fine.
Other people can see this sort of presentation, and actually it's probably been pretty useful just having a sort of almost like an interview conversation with you, David. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Hopefully I haven't come across as too uneducated on it. Yeah, great. Thank you. That's been so helpful, and we'll be in touch once we've kind of got things up and running. And yeah, we'll definitely be in touch.
Cool, wonderful. Thanks, David.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Good evening. Bye.
See you soon. Bye.
Angela, if you have got any questions, try and let me know now.